Manifestation without action is fantasy. I'm going to say it again. Manifestation without action is fantasy. I'm going to try it one more time. Manifestation without action is fantasy. What looks like overnight success is usually decades of invisible work finally colliding with the present moment. Right now, what I am talking about is this whole idea of manifestation. It is not magic. It is multiplied action. My name is Mark, aka Create Lifestyle, and I help people break out of the matrix so that they can experience freedom, abundance, peace of mind, residual income while leaving a powerful legacy. I'm primarily talking to people over 50. However, if you are under 50, you can save yourself a whole lot of time. So here we go. Manifestation is thought times action. I know a lot of times for me, I went through this whole period, on my conscious journey when I was waking up, or it's an evolution. But I've been on this journey and you go through this period of meditation and you go through this period of grounding yourself and you go through this period of affirmations and vision boards and reading books and on and on and on. But you get to a point where you have to take some serious action. So manifestation is conscious thought times action. That is what will equal your manifestation. Action is required. And today you'll look around and you'll see, that breaking out of this matrix, it requires some energy, it requires some understanding, and it certainly requires some effort. And sometimes you'll see people that worked inside of the matrix, but they worked hard, meaning that they had focused energy and they had a focused plan and they just focused for a couple of decades, 20, 30, 40 years. And you see them and they are living what appears to be a great lifestyle. They worked hard and they earned that. And we're not taking anything away from people that have done that. But once you get kind of beyond 50 and you're not where you want to be and you don't see how you're going to get there based off of your salaries or your income, you realize that you got to do something a little bit different. And what we're doing here is we're creating systems, we're creating leverage. Most of us have worked jobs, as I've mentioned, and we're fighting over the small amount that the system has allowed us to have access to. So we're fighting over 10% or 1% of what's available. And 99%, the other 99% is over here that we don't have access to. This is where the asset holders are, the ones that own the businesses, the ones that own all the assets, the ones that control how the money is flowing through our economy. That's where the money is. But we're over here focused and we're kind of fighting over the scraps, more or less. So in order to break out of that, you have to have some leverage. Most people, they see expansion, they see the projects, they see growth coming from all directions. But what you don't see is decades of groundwork, thousands of hours of effort, all kinds of failures, working for free, going through the learning curves, paying the dues. You're witnessing the ripple effects of decades of disciplined action. So what this is about is creating leverage to help you overcome some of those shortcomings, but you got to go to work. Again, it's conscious thought times action is going to equal the manifestation. You're going to be like a salmon swimming against the current at times. Breaking out of this matrix, it requires going upstream. It requires energy. It requires endurance. Not everybody's going to make it. It depends on what it is that you want or what a person wants. Sovereignty, it requires effort. And again, I'm talking about leverage right now. And if you want to see what it is that we're doing, go to matrixleverage.com and check it out. So my background is in the, it's interesting because growing up, I wanted to be a pilot is what I wanted to be. I wanted to fly planes. And the closest I got to that was going to travel school. And I went to travel school and I did very well there. And I graduated out of that and I got into the travel industry. And I ultimately worked my way up into I started off delivering tickets and then ultimately worked my way up to working in a reservations bank and then ultimately being a travel agent, where people actually walked into the office, sat at my desk, and I booked them on these fabulous trips. That's what I started off doing. But then I went back to school, and in that process, I had to get a job. I needed to eat was the issue. And so I ended up getting a job in a restaurant. So over many years, I worked in the hospitality field, and I still work in the hospitality field on a very part-time basis today. But what I did there was waitering and bartending and those kinds of hustle type things. But I had to respect it because it kept me alive. It kept me afloat. It helped me pay for my coaching and things that I needed to learn to do what I'm doing right now. Presently, I have a handful of mentors that are very successful in what I'm sharing with you right now. And what I'm sharing with you is some of what they talk about consistently. This whole idea of breaking out of the matrix. So that's what we're doing here. But as I mentioned, people that are successful, it's not an overnight success. It's built on solid foundation. It's built on leverage. It's built on knowledge. It's built on being able to scale intelligently. What does that mean? Being able to double, triple, quadruple your results. It takes intelligence to be able to do that. Residual income is built through structure. It's not just built by hustling. So again, I'm talking about manifestation right now and how to bring it all to life. Feeling busy, it's not the same as being productive. You could be busy all day, but you're still not getting anything done. Many people feel exhausted, but focused work and time is minimal. The hard truth is when you're working like you're working your fingers to the bone, that's when you're really just getting warmed up. It requires some work. That's the hard truth. So you're going to have times when you're working hard. You're going to have some seasons when there's a harvest. There's going to be times when you're pulling back. You don't quit, but you slow down. And these phases, they're not forever. They're just a phase. So, a lot of people are saying that if you want to do something big, if you want to say yes to something big, you got to believe that you can do it. You got to believe in it. And that's the whole thing is how do you get belief? And that's where this whole idea of coming out of the matrix kind of comes to life because it requires mental fortitude. It requires expanding your mindset. And that's where all the meditation and the affirmations and the vision boards and being around the right people and all those types of things. That's where the confidence begins to come from. But hey, don't discount your hard work and the consistency and your energy investment. This is all strategic leverage. It could take a long time to make some things happen. But if you find yourself short of time, like once you crack 50, this is where you got to start working intelligently and working strategically, and you got to have a plan. And this is when it all begins to hit, and it looks like magic, but it's not magic, it's mathematics. So kind of in summary and closing Manifestation is not magic, it's clarity, it's multiplied action, it's structure, leverage, it's consistency, it's all those things. So we have to stop trading time for money. We got to build some leverage, create this residual income, and break out of the matrix. So once again, go to matrixleverage.com. This is not hype. We're building systems. And as always, peace, one love, and control your destiny.